Hello, fellow Reds, and welcome to your LFC Transfer Room Tuesday stream. I'm your host for this evening, and I'm welcomed by an extreme bundle of guests today, a few that I haven't seen in a while, so I'm very, very happy tonight. Jack, how are you, my friend? It's been a long time.
I'm doing very good. So grateful to follow you as my brilliant host.
I've
I'm
learned
doing great.
everything I can from you. I'm like the Padawan to your Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'll take that role. That
We'll do that.
feels very flattering to me.
Thank you. Brandon, how are you, mate?
I'm doing all right. I guess, as I told you guys before, I'm not feeling great today. So hopefully I can give you an hour, 60, maybe 120, maybe I have to get subbed out, but I'll give you my best as long as I got.
Good. No, rest up as much as you can, mate. But, welcome. I'm happy that you're here. And finally, Dan. Dan, is this 2 days in a row?
Oh God, I've been. What do you mean 2 days in a row? I've been going since last Monday, pretty much every day. Like I'm just out here getting subscriber numbers. But it's
You're doing more hours than a certain director of football. We won't mention names.
Well, listen, I go back to work here in a couple of weeks, and then after I go back to work, I won't be able to hop on a lot of shows. So I gotta get the FaceTime while I can.
No, it's good to see you, mate, as always.
Good to see you too, well, Charlie.
Thank you. Good. So we have got an action-packed, as always, it seems like these days, certainly after the weekend. So yeah, we've got a lot to talk about today. But what I thought we would do, considering that we haven't spoken to everyone since the Sunday kickoff, I thought I'd just give a minute or two to everyone, talk about what they felt about the game, good things, bad things, but keep it a couple of minutes. Jack, any thoughts about the game that haven't been expressed already?
Tough watch at times. I was very optimistic at the start. It was the same as every Chelsea match. It feels like, they've got flaws to their team that we can kind of exploit. A strong start to the match, but then kind of peters out a little bit with a late first half goal. It feels like it's a story for every single one. A lot of frustration, especially considering that they were about to win the Caicedo race. And that was kind of just another stab to the heart. And then they beat us to Lavia as well. So really just they drew that match, but it feels like they thumped us like 7-0 in a lot of ways. So tactically, I'm not going to make broad claims because if we're running that group long term, there are going to be bigger problems. But the hope is we don't. So.
And Brandon.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jack. Frustrating, especially with what happened afterwards. That it would have been much easier to take the Caicedo news and the Lavia news if we had just thumped them like 4-0 or something like that. Yeah, I didn't get to watch all of it. I had to go to work, and then I got to catch the last, definitely got to catch the last 15 minutes, and I almost went out of. I work with the public, so I almost started screaming in the middle of my store when that ball with Darwin at the very end almost went in. So, I mean, I wish it would have. I would rather been embarrassed during that, and then.
No. And then Dan, you've probably spoken about this 6 times since Sunday, but we'll still take your thoughts, mate.
Well, I mean, I think we didn't really learn anything new. I think what I did learn, though, is that we were really, really good. Szoboszlai is very, very good. McAllister is very good as well. In many ways. I know what Jack's saying, but I feel like a lot of people felt like we got beat 7-0 in that game. But if you look at the underlying numbers for both us and Chelsea, it was very, very close. It was a very weird game in many ways because if that second goal by Salah goes in, I think we went 3-0 and it doesn't become a contest. I think that because that goal gets given offside and then Chelsea are able to score just a few minutes later, kind of changes. It's very much a game state kind of game. What I have learned from Chelsea is, one, they need a lot of players, but 2, Pochettino's going to coach them very well. And I think that's one thing that, that Chelsea not lacked, but they had Tuchel in, who's very specific. They had Potter in, who does very specific. But Pochettino's kind of the best of both worlds, where you get someone with a lot of experience, but get a lot of talent. Anyways, but he's got his work cut out for him. Maurizio Pochettino, even though they just signed Caicedo and Lavia and are possibly going to get Elise, they're also a team that needs a lot of work. But also, I learned Enzo Fernandez is the business. That man is good. I would love to have him. He's not 107 million pounds good, but he looks very, very good. And that's pretty much what I learned from Chelsea from that game.
Yeah, agreed. He did look really, really good. I mean, very, very quickly from me, I thought the first 25 minutes we were really, really good, kind of really excellent. If we could have got that second goal, would have made much, a real massive difference to the outcome of the match. But yeah, we we still need that kind of midfield. We need to kind of work on formations, get everyone kind of working on the same level. But yeah, Rigo, just wanted to call out, yes, loving this new kit. We had a quick chat, didn't we, Dan, about the kit, and it's lovely, really, really nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should go buy one. We need to fund some transfers, guys. Like, so start to give them money to Liverpool. 20% from Nike is going to go a long way to signing. I don't know, Ibrahima Sangare at this point.
Yeah. Well, still lots to talk about, isn't there? It's still time. There's still time that we can make all the signings that we want. You know, we'll follow Chelsea's path and sign numerous players and give them stupid long contracts, and we'll just go from there. Happy days. But before we start and talking about the topics that we had today, just want to make sure that you leave a like, subscribe. You know, everything that you guys do for this channel kind of helps us build the brand, build what we want to do for you guys. We've got so many good ideas in the background that we want to kind of keep on going. You know, so whatever you can do, like, subscribe, let your friends know, people, fellow Reds. You know, this is a brilliant community, and we could just want to grow. And on that note, we'll move to our first topic. And what I want to do, if there was like an interesting graphic that we had, I don't know if anyone's seen Wayne's World, but there's like a, you know, the like a shimmer effect which takes you back in time, and I want to take you back to June 2023. Khephren Thuram and Manu Kone. You know, so the two previous names that have been spoken about at length, and I remember when I first joined the transfer room, we spoke about Thuram and Kone. I've got a few questions about it, but what I'll do, kind of general thoughts. Any general thoughts about the transfers, those two in particular? Jack?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it made sense back then. We thought that we could kind of sideline potentially bringing in Thuram because we brought in Szoboszlai. So we thought, all right, on the balance of things, we'll probably bring in a DM. He wasn't as necessary, but I mean, it feels like every target we possibly could have had has gone other directions or kind of turned sour in some ways. It always felt like a deal that would make a lot of sense. And Thuram especially, I've always liked. It's just an option in the midfield as a body. He could fill in at the 6 temporarily. Long term, he's just more great depth in that 8 role that we possess in the squad. I've always been a fan of him. We don't have like we've never really had a massive physical presence in the midfield under Klopp. Like just a dude who is just humongous. So even if all else fails, we just have a ginormous dude in the middle of the park who's like 6'4" or something, which would be very welcome return to kind of just having someone who can thump somebody. Because when Konate goes in on a challenge and cleans somebody out, it just asserts a little bit of authority as a team. And so if Thuram, you know, you don't want to boil his game down just to raw physicality, but that's a trait he has in an incredible way. Kone, I'm not against. He's not perfect, but we can't expect perfection at this point. We've put ourselves in a corner. The fees might be higher than they would have been if we signed him a month ago, back in that when we were young men in June of this year. But the club has to suck it up. You know, you made mistakes. The players, the way you valued them, you're not going to hit those valuations because you've shown your hand to the world, and they know you're desperate because you have no leverage. You have no defensive midfielder, so you clearly need one. You have 110 million you were willing to splurge on one guy. You clearly got cash, and there's a deadline that exists in 2 weeks. So they're going to get rinsed, honestly. And I would say, hopefully, the club just kind of within reason. I mean, you can't be really taken, but it's going to be, I think, some figures that will be a little ugly to look at times. Those numbers, they're no doubt that they're easy to do them at that rate. You know, that is just slightly more than Caicedo. And truthfully, Caicedo plus 15 million in the bank is worse than those 3 guys. Just our team would be better. We'd be able to challenge better. It should be done, but I don't know if those prices might get bumped up. I know Ignacio is a release clause, but Kone and Thuram, those clubs would be wise to just eke out another extra 10 million for them. So will it happen because of that stubborn valuation? I don't know, but you have to hope that at least one of those makes sense to be signed. But then it would just beg the question, why didn't you do this 2 months ago?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think from the point those 2 months ago, and certainly I saw a report, and I think I shared it in the group back in July there was, and this is around about Thuram and the conversation about his demands. Now, Dan, I don't know what you think about certainly that report itself around the demands and how much of a salary and then the signing on fee that he was looking for. But the question to you is, what's changed from a Liverpool's perspective from those conversations that we had in June, July to where we are now, and are we desperate?
Well, I mean, I think as a fan base, we're desperate. I think in the boardroom, I wouldn't say desperate, but definitely a sense of urgency is going to be needed in order to get someone in. For Khephren Thuram, I don't think they're going to go back in for him because it's obvious from reports and the players that we were trying to get the Khephren Thuram was seen in the position that Szoboszlai is in, not as someone who's coming in as a defensive six. I think it's more likely that they go for Kone Ignacio out of that group. One, because we only have 2 non-homegrown spots that we can register, so we're not going to get all 3 non-homegrown players to register for this team. So I just don't think they're going to go back into Thuram, and it's mostly because of where they see him being positionally as well. Now, you could argue, and this was something at the time, that you could coach him into being a 6, but again, it's just going to come back down to, you know, how fast can you get the deal done, you know, how willing other clubs are going to sell the player to you. And yeah, I mean, like, you know, wage demands, agent fees, everything else. We've just seen with the Caicedo situation how, you know, you can pay a decent wage, you can pay an agent's fee, and then that agent's fee and that player can hold up the deal for 72 hours and then essentially force Brighton to sell you to the other club, Chelsea, for under £15 million. So, you know, I don't think they'll go back in for Thuram. I'd be very surprised if they did, given all the reports. I could definitely see a situation where the next one up we see is Manu Kone, because we were linked with him very, very heavily. And he's probably the best, not the best available, probably like your most economic option, your value option on the market, where you're not going to get rents because Gladbach need money, and they've already signed the replacements. He won't demand a big wage. He probably won't demand a big transfer fee. And Ignacio obviously has release clause, and we've been release clause FC because we've been trying to be in a position where we don't have to negotiate with clubs, because we see what happens when we try to negotiate. You know, the fees are ridiculous. The deal can get held up by agents. And so we've prioritized speed this summer, and we were fast, and then we were very, very slow, and now we have to be fast again.
All really terrific points. Things that you have to consider when making that making the transfer, all those considerations. Certainly we are, you know, release clause FC this summer, and it's worked in our favour, because the fee that we would have had to pay for someone like McAllister would have probably been closer to what we would have, you know, Southampton were demanding for Lavia. So you take those considerations, the opposites in that respect, and then the money that we spent on Szoboszlai. Again, you're probably looking at north of 100 million for that type of player with the capabilities, his age, everything.
Yeah, think how much Man City are now trying to play for Lucas Paquetá, who is 25.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I think Lucas Paquetá's a good player, but, you know, would you rather have the younger, more exciting 6'1", handsome Hungarian on your team, or, you know, just another Brazilian playmaker? You know, we obviously want the handsome Hungarian.
No, yeah, he has got a very chiseled chin, hasn't he? So he's got that Batman chin. So if you put a Batman mask, he's got that chin, the Ben Affleck chin. But yeah, it's a really interesting one, isn't it? So, but Brandon, Kone's knee surely is a bit of a topic of debate. You know, something that needs to be discussed. I mean, what are your thoughts about that itself? He has started running this week. Is that something that gives you confidence to allow us to kind of spend more money on a player that hasn't really proven match fitness as of yet?
Yes, that would be the worry, because, you know, we've had injury issues in the past, as we've known. 2 of our last 3 years have been ruined by at least by injuries. Excuse me. Also, I mean, I'm much more, and I'd rather have Thuram than Kone. So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of looking for any reason to justify I want Thuram over Kone debate in my own head. But the fact that he is moving, he's running, he's still young enough to where you can't bet that's going to be a recurring issue. So you think he's getting back to it. He's not super proven. I mean, we have seen players in the past few years that have struggled coming from Germany to England. Whereas, I mean, I don't know. I really don't. Sorry, I'm so brain foggy right now.
No. I mean, Monkey Club, great name. he's made, or that person's made a really good point. He's back running. You tend not to be able to do that if your knee's knackered. I think that's a good point. It maybe is showing that there is strength in the knee, strength in the legs, so maybe he isn't too far off. Making his first appearance. I think the problem would he be able to squeeze in a match? Even if it's half an hour, 20 minutes, towards the end of the window, to give us confidence that he's able to kind of withstand the stress and the pressures and the physicality of a Bundesliga match.
Yeah, because you would expect him, if he's coming in, he's going to be we're going to wait until October or November before we start getting him into the team. He's going to be somebody who's on the bench ready to go the first game available. So, I mean, you want to kind of see him going. At least he's running. If he gets a game, that'd be perfect. I mean, as we've been kind of saying, we're up against it now where we may not have that luxury. We may have to make that decision, like just fingers crossed and hope this works out for the best. And I don't trust the owners to ever just cross their fingers and hope for the best. They're too analytical for that.
Yeah. So in that case, then let's think about alternatives. I know there's a little bit of discussion later on in the topics that we have, but alternatives, and there's loads of shouts out there. Daniel has come out and says we need a destroyer in CDM. Can you think of anyone that could stand out? There's a few names that I've got on my list. Belieber being one, and he's the lad that's just been linked to Brighton, which would be hilarious if we could actually get him, save the middleman come next season or 2 years' time when we're having to spend 100 million on getting him. Could we just cut that out and get a player like him straight away?
I think so. I think the Kone at Crystal Palace would be a great one, but obviously with what they've been doing in the transfer business, that fee is going to be way up there just because of everything else they've already lost. I mean, if we come down to it, I don't think Tyler Adams has moved. I mean, he's not perfect. He's not ever going. He's probably is what he is. He's probably never going to develop into a first team consistent player for Liverpool at that level. But he definitely would come in and do a job, and he can play multiple positions. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and he's a leader. I mean, he would be an option, not my 1, 2, or 3 option, but he'd be somebody I'd be willing to look for. May not be a complete destroyer, but he does do a good job when he's out there.
Yeah, he's a good player. Really underrated. I think he's just signed for Bournemouth as well.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not too sure if that's actually gone through. But certainly a player that could have done a job. Filling that Milner type role itself of being a utility man, because we do need those type of players. I don't know what you think there, Jack, about the utility man Tyler Adams.
I mean, he would make sense, just to bring in an American. We're so good at soccer, clearly, as a country. Just getting a good soccer player. I wouldn't be against it. I'd love it. I get behind it. But he also would kind of, I think, very easily be pushed to the wayside. I don't think he's a perfect option for our 11. There are better options off the bench. I'm not totally sold on him being brought in. I think he would be nice. There's nothing terribly wrong with it as an option, but I'm personally on the João Palhinha train for our defensive midfielder, because I just feel like what we've done is we've missed our options of the perfect is impossible to find, but players that made a lot of sense. Good price points for young players with a lot of potential to grow, who didn't have massive flaws. Lavia would make a lot of sense. But with Palhinha, he's 28, and you can look at that and you can be like, oh, he's 28. He's done. He hasn't played as many matches as a normal 28-year-old has. Not a history of injuries that's led to that lack of matches. A bit of a late bloomer. The age is not a problem for me. We've got 3 seasons left of Klopp. I don't want us to bring in a project. Bring in a project. Not to say that Palhinha is going to walk in and be an instant success, but I don't want us to bring in somebody who's going to take time to mold, who is going to lead to us to have another rebuild year. I want somebody who in the next 3 months can get up to speed as quickly as anybody can, and Palhinha is that guy. Where this is not a resale ability player. We'll sign him, and this will probably be the last big move that will be made. We'll keep him for 3-4 years, and then he'll be 31, 32. Maybe Saudi Arabia still is kicking the cash around, and they bring him in. That's a future potential there, but I don't want to look at the financial side of things right now. We have one of the greatest managers in this club's history, greatest manager of my lifetime that I've seen, and we risk taking too long to develop into this season by signing a project too late. If we brought in Lavia 3 weeks ago, that'd be great. Wouldn't need Palhinha because he'd have time to bed in and he'd be able to kind of grow. And he's a risk, but we've got a match, this weekend, and this season does matter. So I would hate for us to waste. And Palhinha would almost be perfect for our arc. If you look at the last 3 under Klopp, probably try and get back in the Champions League, hopefully win Europa League Cup competition. If we challenge for the Prem, I'm obviously ecstatic for that, but I don't expect that just because of the flaws in the squad. And Palhinha will be basically in his prime next year when hopefully the team is gelled and then we make a real stab at it again for 2 years. So I think he makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. I just can't get behind some of these projects I'm seeing. Like, again, skipping the middleman for the Brighton player. We just don't have the infrastructure, I think, to develop a guy who isn't going to walk in and be a guaranteed success. No one's a guarantee, obviously, but it feels like this is the wrong time to skip the middleman. It feels like that's something we should do elsewhere, like for the left center back or for the second choice midfield that we should probably bring in, not the guy who has to go into defensive mid and carry the team in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I don't hate that idea, but if he feels flawed to be executed right now.
Okay, well, let's compromise, and I'll throw out another name. Dan, I don't know if you've ever watched a particular player called Florentino Luis, but he could be that bridge that would allow us to have experience, but then years that would take us beyond Klopp. Not something that I want to talk about because Klopp should stay forever as long as he wants. But what are your thoughts about that particular player? Could he be the bridge that allows us to have the destroyer, the age, the profile, the salary, and then the fee as well? Maybe not as big as what Palhinha would have cost or the Curry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Florentino Luis is definitely like a shout, and I think he's probably one of the better remaining options still available to us. My 2 things that are on my mind, though: one, he's had release clause this entire summer, and if they were really, really greeted him at the right price of his release clause, I feel like we would have paid it by now. 2, I feel like we would have had more solid negotiations with Benfica because we have bought, Darwin Nunez from them. We have a great relationship with Benfica, and obviously the news coming around, even our deal with Caicedo at Brighton. Liverpool are still a really good club to deal with. Still no issues for the most part, even though we did lose Romeo Lavia from Southampton to Chelsea. I think that's the best option. But if you're, let's say, working with 110, 11 million pounds, let's just say like what we were willing to play with Caicedo, if you have that money to slush around and you still need to solve both a midfield and a defensive question, I think that money's best going to someone like Youssouf Fofana, who can do the Florentino Luis position about the same. Probably can get him at half the price, a year older, again about the same height, about 6 foot, 6'1", and 2, it gives you the money you can still spend on a center back like Gonzalo Ignacio, which is again has a release clause. And again, we can only really sign 2 non-homegrown players, which is why they were looking at people like Colwell, Lavia, and even at the end going for Caicedo because Caicedo solved so many problems in one transfer. I disagree with Jack on the Palhinha shout, not because he's too old, but because Fulham 1 would demand like over 80 million pounds, and you need to do a lot of work than just sign João Palhinha. If João Palhinha was the answer, absolutely throw 80 million pounds. But right now, as we've kept saying, they're going to need to start playing for a future in defense and solve the defensive mid issue in one summer. And they got to at least start doing both because Klopp's got 3 more years, and I'm pretty sure he wants to, as we've seen from the players, the goal is that they want to win the Premier League. They've said this. They said, like, that's our goal to do. And I think we can still do that with the team we have, but it would be very much like a 13-14 type of team where we're going to see a lot of 6-3s at Cardiff rather than like maybe like the 1920 where, we're going and grinding out 2 wins, 1-0 wins, or 1-1 draws.
Yeah, no, it's all real interesting. As I said at the start, I think there's a couple of weeks to go. We need to kind of push ahead with making transfers. So we'll shift thoughts from midfield to defence. And the next topic is Pavard, who suddenly has reappeared again. We're going back in time and discussing Pavard. So I guess the first question is, why would you want to be leaving Bayern? I think the scope of what he's trying to do within his career is look towards a centre-back role. So that kind of leaves questions as to why he would be looking to move to what we look at. Oh, just had a... Yeah, sorry. The move to centre back. So that kind of brings an interesting conversation around Manchester United. But yeah, I just want to say thank you for Matty. Really, really generous. I mean, we've got a question here. I agree with Jack. Palhinha is good to go.
He's a smart man.
FSG
Agreeing with me.
have ambition. They're valuing the market strategy and realise that the lack of investment in midfield over the last 3 years that has got us here. Yeah, you know, it's been covered. I think there's a lot of sentiment around that there, Matty. We do need to kind of try to think about not just the 3 years. It is something. It is a long-term project, isn't it? What we're trying to do. I guess the downfalls of what we have with FSG has led to this, and we have discussed it at length.
I'll make one more Palhinha argument
Go
for
on.
potentially for Dan as well, just because don't look at it as you're buying Palhinha on his own. You know, as is Palhinha worth 80 million pounds? If that's what Fulham quote us at, I'm not running away. I mean, we need to yank that down because it shouldn't stop us from signing other players. But don't look at it as 80 million pounds for Palhinha. Look at it as you are taking full advantage of right now when you have the back end of Van Dijk's prime. You're at the prime of Alisson. You're at Trent, peak of his powers. Salah's in his prime. You've got these forwards who are developing. You've got midfielders who need support. McAllister and Szoboszlai need support because they can't have their Liverpool careers start with a weakened system that will lead to them with poor foundations. So you're not buying just this one player in isolation. You're buying what can support the entire system. I think he could support it all. And at 80 million pounds, I'm not scared of that. Florentino Luis, I would be very scared to see. If the ceiling for him is much higher, I agree. Palhinha is probably one of the lowest ceiling options for the guys we could sign, but I don't really care about his individual ceiling. It's about what the system would need. But Charlie, it's also important because you have to consider the fee does matter because we need to improve the defense as well, to get back to your point on Pavard.
Well, I mean, so Jack, like I said, I don't disagree with any of those points. I think absolutely Palhinha would be a great shout. I'm just thinking about like what work we need to do, how long we could actually negotiate it for Fulham, how much Fulham would be willing to demand, and they would probably hold the deal up until they could sign a player. So for me, it's more looking at this from a point of view that time is of the matter, and you need to go to a player that you can get done within, you know, let's say 72 hours, 48 hours. I'm not saying they have to be ready by Bournemouth. They don't have to be ready by Newcastle. They don't have to be ready by Villa, but you need to get these deals done as soon as possible. Like if we were in a better situation, absolutely, I'd be all in on Palhinha for whatever price we can get him for, because yeah, he could come in kind of like a Thiago signing and just really add some dynamic that we're missing. It's just in my experience watching this team, the last time we spent money on a midfielder older than 27 was Thiago, and I just don't think anybody in that room is going to be entertaining that 80 million. They're going to be looking to either take a project, which I know you don't want, but that may be something they may be thinking. Someone who can be a project, come in and just win the ball and pass it. I think it's what Andre's going to be. Or two, they're looking at someone who's going to be the lighthouse midfielder, as Pep Linders said. And that's what they were trying to get with Caicedo. I think that's what they saw in Lavia, but again, it was an issue of value. And I think that's what Florentino Luis could be.
So that kind of brings me, and I think this has got a nice kind of trajectory into Pavard and bringing that back into. So in terms of the ready now player, the fee that would be commanded for such a player, I guess Brandon, what are your kind of thoughts around the Pavard link, the re-emergence of that link, and could we find a place for him at right back or centre back? Does that have any impact in that respect?
I mean, it wouldn't be a bad signing. Obviously, a World Cup winner. I mean, guy who's played big matches throughout his whole career. I just think that we're being used as leverage to try to get the fee up from Man United. I don't think there's real tangible like links between us and Pavard. I think it's more of just trying to drive his price up and say, oh, you know, when they go to negotiate, just trying to drive his price up. So
are we being played again?
I just don't think I just don't think we're actually in for him. I don't think there's any real, like maybe we've kicked tires, but not more than that.
I agree with Brandon. I think from Christian Folk and Florian Patenberg early in the window were saying that Liverpool did have general interest, but I'm pretty sure they've started to shy away from Pavard and we start looking at other places. And right now, Pavard just what he said and all the news screams that he wants United want to get him. And he kind of just screams United signing, you know, again, overpaid defender who's, again, decent, but, you know, he's just made for Man United.
For me,
Yeah.
I just don't really see like what's an 11 that has Pavard starting in it that you actually want to play. Like, I don't think we can make a signing right now that doesn't have the player doesn't have a realistic role in a starting 11. Like, are
Well,
we
what's the
benching
impact?
Trent?
Yeah, I was just about to say that's one of my questions. What's the impact on Trent? Where does Trent fit in this respect? Does this cut down on Trent's minutes? Because he wouldn't be playing right back as many games. Would he be
So
playing in midfield?
if you're buying Pavard, you're pretty much saying that Trent's going to be a midfielder, and I think there is an argument that you go buy a right back. You know, if you're saying we're going to buy a 6 and instead of buying a left side center back, we're just going to buy someone who can play right center back and just shift everyone over one position. There is an argument for that because I'm assuming you guys watched the interviews after the game when Trent was talking to Sturridge. He pretty much said, I want to be a midfielder. I'm up for that challenge. Trent very much backs himself to be that. And I think there is an argument and probably discussions of, is there a right back or a right center back that we can buy that you end up in a position where you actually have a back line of, say, I don't know about Pavard. Let's just say someone like Pavard, Konate, Van Dijk, Robertson, and then Robinson goes up, and it's a back three of Van Dijk, Konate, Pavard, with Trent being a midfielder.
I don't know. We make our right back becomes worse. Pavard for Trent, it's just worse. And when you put Trent in a position he's never played before, when he struggles positionally defensively, he's your cover for your 8s who you want to press high up the pitch and to be active in the attack. And then you're limiting Trent and his creative because he has to carry the water for other players. Trent is the player that you build to be able to be supported. He doesn't do the supporting. So Pavard makes no sense because it doesn't make sense in terms of just a transfer strategy. Because, the only way I could see it is a back 5. And Klopp would never do that, like a 3-4-3. And you've got wing backs of Robertson and Trent. And that is not bad with those two guys there. But Klopp's pride, I don't think will ever let him do that. Because Pavard as a right-sided center back, he's not bad. But, does that excite you? Playing a 3-4-3, with a midfield pivot of McAllister and Thiago? It's not terrible. But, it seems like a poor investment. I'd much rather stick Konate right center back, play Inacio left center back, or one of the other links we've had there.
Yeah,
it feels like a non-starter to me, to be honest, Charlie.
Yeah, no, I agree. It is a strange one. I think the focus is always going to be, and Daniel's raised the same point that I have in my head. Should we not be looking at a left-sided centre back who can play left back, whether that's going to be taken over from Robbo or ultimately taken over from Virgil? So I'll ask the question in regards to Pavard. Just that one figure answer. How much do you think we could get him for if interest is real? Jack?
In terms of what I'd be willing to pay or what it would take?
No. Willing to pay. Well, let's take that. Yeah, we'll take willing to pay.
I think that's more important. I think that's, from our perspective, what I can probably speak most to is I would pay no more than 20 million pounds. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's a non-starter. It feels like for Bayern, for a player who, as Dan mentioned, or maybe it was Brendan, just World Cup winner, who's got experience at the top level. He's a talented player. And the price we would be willing to pay, because it would need to be 20, because he would need to fit in with 2 other signings. So it doesn't feel right in that sense as well. But to be honest with you, I'm giving you a lot of reasons why Pavard wouldn't make sense. We're probably going to end up signing him just because it doesn't make sense.
And you get Pavard on your shirt as well.
Good Lord, yeah. That.
Jack, I don't think you have anything to worry about. I think he's going to United.
He's the most United signing that's ever existed. It's
him
French.
And him and Varane.
And he'll be good. He'll be good there. That's a good signing for them. It makes more sense for them than it does for us. And I don't really care enough, to be honest.
Brandon, thoughts on how much realistically?
I was literally thinking the exact same number as Jack, because I don't think it's much of anything. So 20 million. I'd say 20 million. They'd say no. Then we just walk away. Get on to something that actually is going to help this team. Because if we were going to sign him to play right back and move Trent in the midfield, that should have been something that would have been done very early in the transfer window. If they had that as, well, what happens if we don't get these guys? They would have probably tried to be doing this way earlier in the transfer window if the idea was moving maybe Trent in the midfield. Now it's more desperation, but I don't think they're still going to just go throw money at a 27-year-old that doesn't really fit with what we want to do. Like I just don't see it making any sense getting Benjamin Pavard.
And Dan, any thoughts on how much you'd like to pay?
Well, I mean, I think 20 is Jack's playing really hard poker with Bayern Munich there. He's like, I'm not paying any longer than 20. I think the highest Laporte might be going was like 35 to 40, which is probably what they were banking with Ignacio in many ways, or like up to his release clause. I think he'll probably go for 55 to 60 because United always overpay, so they're going to pay essentially Mason Mount, 007, 0 wins, 0 duels, 0 dribbles completed, 7 fouls committed. That's probably what we're going to get out of Benjamin Pavard as well. Yeah, I mean, and again, I think Brandon hit it perfect on the head. If this was something you wanted to do, this should have been done before July. I think the only reason it was not done before July was essentially just comes out of the fact that they weren't expecting Fabinho and Henderson to both go in the same summer. And since both went, that kind of threw a lot of what they had planned to do in the summer in kind of a bit of turmoil. So now we're very much like in a situation where, left center back, defensive mid. Those are the two positions we really just need to strengthen. Side defender, side defensive mid, and we'll be set for at least January.
Yeah, no, it's all interesting. I personally don't think it's going to happen. But I think what could happen is we've just reached over 300 views, which is really, really great. Hit those likes, hit those subscribes. Let's give you the best content we can give you. It's a massive season, lots of games, lots of feedback. There's going to be videos every day. That's how committed we are. So you're going to get non-stop content coming your way. So please hit those likes. It really, really helps. So next topic. This one threw me, actually. I didn't see it come in, but we'll still have a chat. So there's been a bit of talk around Aston Villa. Aston Villa and Liverpool don't really kind of mix in the same circles in terms of, footballing abilities, I would have thought anyway. But Kamara and Douglas Luiz, there's certainly been some interest in those two players. Jack, do you think this is worthwhile interest? Is it actual Twitter talk, or just the fact that we're desperate for midfielders and these are two kind of transfer bingo names that just come out the hat?
Yeah, I mean, do they have two legs? Yes, they do. Have they played professional football at the top level? They have. Do they have some fun names that would make you kind of excited in the midfield? They do. Could they potentially want to take a step up? They could. Those are the check marks that every journalist, every agent, everybody is looking at, and then they're going to toss them our way. We could sign one of them. It doesn't make a ton of sense, other than they both have flaws in their games. I've liked Douglas Luiz, to be honest. I've always been a fan of his. He's not a perfect player. I think his ceiling's quite low and what he can do, but he's a serviceable player. He would be fine at a certain price, but I don't think. Again, I think we're just in a spot where, and this will always be the case for almost every player, is what we should pay for a player, what we will value them at, what the club that is going to sell them, they'd have to find a replacement in 2 weeks, and that replacement will be higher because of how late it is in the window. Every player is going to cost a lot of money. Like, I could see Boubacar Kamara costing an arm and a leg. 23-year-old, a lot of potential, really hasn't kind of found it yet. They make sense, I think, to be linked our way, but in terms of actually signing, truthfully, I'd be stunned just because we've had nothing, no inkling towards it. And now we kind of just completely pivot, switch gears. They're clearly second choice options, which isn't like any surprise to anybody. But
could there be an argument? I mean, could they be an argument that they're not even second choice? I mean, Brandon, what do you think? Are they the caliber of players? I know we're talking about Crystal Palace players, and there's no this against those type of players. But should we be shopping at Aston Villa? Should we be looking at more established players in who are playing European football, for instance?
Not necessarily. I mean, I remember when Klopp was first building this original team that won the Champions League, won the league, came within 2 points of winning 2 more leagues and almost another 2 other Champions Leagues. We were buying players from Southampton. We were getting people from Southampton and from Southampton and from Southampton. Whoops. And then we were signing a lot of people from mid-table clubs who had that chance to grow. Obviously, our situation's a little bit different now because we are kind of desperate for somebody comes in and is immediately ready to go and all different fronts at the 6, but there's no reason not to be looking at guys at Aston Villa or Crystal Palace, because that's how we build out of this team. I mean, Mo Salah was a Chelsea reject for years until he came to Liverpool and became one of the best in the world. Like, we're buying players not from Bayern Munich, from Hoffenheim with Bobby, so there's no reason not to. Now, personally, I don't think Douglas Luiz or Kamara are going to come into this team and provide much. I mean, Luiz and Tyler Adams, I think, are kind of in that same mold of like, yeah, they can do different things, but they're never going to be that first name on the team sheet. They're going to be that guy's like, oh, he can do a job here, he can do a job there. But there's no reason not to disregard these guys just because they're playing at Aston Villa or Crystal Palace or wherever.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, Dan, they'll actually make a difference to the starting 11, if we are to keep with this formation? Do you think, could you see us getting both players or just one?
Just one. I don't think you're going to sign both. Again, like I hate to bang this drum because I feel like a broken record, and I feel like everyone's annoyed at me for mentioning this. But if you have two not homegrown slots that you can register for the Prem, and then whatever slots we have left for the Europa League, like you're not going to sign both, because one, Luiz and Kamara very much play in like a double pivot in a 4-4-2 at Unai Emery, so they play a very very different role than what our DMs usually play as well. I could see us citing Kamara over Luiz because Luiz is kind of similar to Bruno Guimaraes, where like he's kind of the primary creator and kind of like the primary destroyer, while Kamara is very much just a water carrier. And I've said this in our chats, all Liverpool really need right now is a water carrier. There's plenty of people that can play the piano. The old phrase, you need 7 people to carry a piano and 3 to play it. And if you have that, you have a great team. Really right now we just need water carriers, especially in that midfield, because there's already so much talent and so much creativity from McAllister to Elliott to Jones to Szoboszlai, and we're not even including Bajcetic and Thiago in there as well. So you just need someone to go in there, carry some water, do some shuttle runs, break up the ball, and pass it 5 yards. I would right now what we need to find that N'Golo Kante before Leicester would be like the most ideal thing. Someone just going to run around and win the ball. But in this scenario, I think both, what Jack said earlier, like they're both just going to cost so much money. And again, I don't think Villa would deal very quickly. Whoever you can, again, it's really going to come down to who you're going to get fast and who's going to be the most cost effective that you can structure a deal and do a deal as fast as possible and still have money left over to get a defender.
So yeah, I think it's really interesting, this comment that's just come up. I've brought it up again because is there a bit of an obsession from Liverpool's perspective, the scouting team, to be shopping inside the EPL, the English Premier League, and trying to get those players that we feel are ready now because they're used to the style, to the pace, the physicality of the English Premier League. I don't know what you think, Brandon, but is that a valid thing? Should we start looking at real players from Germany and from Portugal? I know we would have brought in Nunes from that side of the world. So yeah, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, we are our two best, or one of our signings this year from Germany. The 2 guys we're kind of linked most heavily with right now are, one's Germany, one's France. So, I mean, we are looking for players outside the league. I think the homegrown problem is one Dan kind of keeps like pushing, is like that's one reason why you keep seeing these guys who are from the EPL or homegrown status being linked, is because Liverpool are kind of up against it with the homegrown rule. So, I mean, we're not looking at people outside England. We are. I mean, that's what we spent the first 10 minutes talking about.
Yeah, I think, and just to echo what Brandon does, and I think to kind of answer the question in many ways, I think it's interesting the fact that the 2 players we did buy, McAllister, who played at Brighton, played in the system that we're playing right now, and Szoboszlai, who came from the Red Bull system, the RB system, where you're pretty much being coached to play Klopp ball, like the Klopp way of playing, that kind of high pressing, Gurgen pressing, win possession, be very direct. It's pretty much what they coach at Leipzig. No matter if you go from Salzburg to Brazil or everything else, that's exactly how they play. Short passing, long passing, very vertical, very direct. So I think we've been looking at profiles of players and what they've been raised on, because and Charlie, I think you mentioned this earlier, I think Jack mentioned this as well. We need someone who can come in and kind of may not start immediately, but doesn't need a lot of like hand holding. They can come in and they know their role, they know their job, and they can do it you get 3 instructions, you can do it quickly, and you don't have to overthink it. Which is also why I think they went with Lavia, because Lavia had Hasenhüttl, and then Hasenhüttl is the, again, from that Leipzig system, from that Salzburg system, where they very much coach a very specific way. So for me, whoever we end up getting is going to be someone that's been coached by that system, and we're going to be able to get very, very quickly, which is why I think in the end, it'll probably be someone like Manu, Kone, and potentially Florentino Luis, because Kone was coached by Adi Hütte, and Adi Hütte came from that Leipzig system, or he pretty much came from Salzburg to Gladbach before he got sacked.
Yeah, so again, maybe not something that we'll probably take into consideration, not get too involved, because we're not ready for any more heartbreak. But before we start talking about more heartbreak, I just want to say thank you for everyone that's kind of liked and subscribed. We are only 50 away from 9,100. So that's just massive considering where we were just a few months ago. So everything you can do really, really, really help. But yeah, so let's come to the topic. The 2 topics that we've really, really feared hearing about. So what I'll do, let's kind of break this into 2. Because they deserve their own kind of discussions, because they're just fabulous players. Let's go with Mo Salah first. Mo Salah has been linked with a move away to Saudi, similar to what Alisson. There's been chatter on Twitter, or X, if you want to call it that now these days, that a Saudi team have come in, and he's very receptive of that deal itself. Dan, let's start off with you. Kind of, is there any particular reason why this would have occurred? Why Salah would even have a hint of wanting to go over to Saudi, when just a few weeks ago, I'm pretty sure there was conversation that he wouldn't want to?
I don't believe the reports in many ways. I think the biggest issue, the reason this is coming out is mostly because, Neymar just went over to Saudi, and they're still trying to bring in more high-profile players. And there's no more high-profile Muslim player in the world right now than Mohamed Salah. Some people could argue it's Karim Benzema, but I think Salah is the more beloved player across the Muslim world. I could be wrong if anybody wants to correct me. But I don't see any situation that Salah leaves Liverpool playing European football and going to the Saudi League this season. Even for all the money that they could offer him, he's on the biggest contract right now at Liverpool. I think this is coming up in the news. I think it's just like the problem with the world we live in right now is that so much news gets leaked out so many times from so many different angles, from so many competing parties. It's hard to tell which one is the more legitimate version of this. I think this is solely coming out because Saudi, or like these Saudi teams, want to sign him, and it's just trying to be like, hey, like this was this thing that we had this talk with potentially his agent or Mo from 4 or 5 weeks ago. That's like, maybe I'm interested in the future, et cetera, et cetera. So it's taking words out of context from months ago, depending on backroom situations. It's being leaked. Salah's not going to leave, even after everyone was talking about after the game, how Salah was angry about being subbed. I'm like, yeah, he's angry. He wants to win the game. He wants to score. I'd be upset if he was happy to come off. I'd be upset. I'd be more worried about that. So I don't think he's leaving. And the same thing with Alisson Becker. They're not leaving.
Yeah, but that point you just made, Jack, about the attitude possibly that you saw from Mo as he was kind of coming off the pitch, after a decent amount of time on the pitch itself, and had a quiet second half. Let's be honest. Probably the reason why he was substituted off as well. Do you think that reaction has either fueled paper talk, Twitter talk, or there's actually maybe something behind it, because he has got disgruntled, and it's happened more than enough times that this is kind of the final straw that broke the camel's back?
I'd be stunned, to be honest. But I think he was taken off because Jurgen Klopp is showing early signs of Alzheimer's. One of the most baffling substitutions I've ever seen in the history. He should not leave. No, it makes sense for no parties for him to leave, except for Saudi Arabia, who would be thrilled to bring him in. But he's under contract after a saga last summer to re-sign a deal. we need to. If he goes, I question what the club is doing, because there's no replacement that you can get for anywhere close to the cost that you would get for him. And you clearly, especially right now, you get 200 million for him. What do you do with 200 million? Everyone knows you now have 200 million more to spend on your 110 you're already willing to spend. João Palhinha, Dan, you were worried at 80 million. They're just going to add a 1 before that, and they're going to say, "What are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? Not sign a defensive midfielder?"
Yeah, pretty much. That's what you did. That scenario. We just rock on with McConnell. We put McConnell in there. We're like rocking with the boys, because that's all you can do. That's all you can do in that situation.
Yeah, I don't understand any world in which the club sees it happen, because you just send a message that you're giving up on this season. And if I was Jurgen Klopp and that move happened, I would not want to see it happen. And if it did happen, I'd walk, truthfully, because I would say, why am I here for the 3 years if we are going to let our best player leave? Maybe Alisson has an argument for being our best player, but he's also rumored to potentially depart. So I think there is no world in which it should be even listened to, because it would change. We would have to, if we sell Salah, we should blow it all up, like blow it all up. And you should be saying everyone's for sale, move Alisson on for 100 million as well. And then you just kind of take the money, put it in some bonds, make a return on your investment for next summer, and then just go invest next summer. And then just say this season, hopefully we don't get relegated, because it would make no sense to do that. Truthfully, Henderson came out of nowhere, and that one surprised me. Fabinho, that one was like, oh, okay. But that had a routine in reality. It made sense to move these guys on. Maybe they're past their powers. Watch Salah from much of that first half. He's going to be at it this year. It's Sadio Mane, when he got pissed off that Salah didn't pass, and he came off the pitch and he was gesticulating. He was saying, why did this happen? It was a real shame that Sadio Mane immediately put in a transfer request and left the club after that happened, because that's how these things clearly always go.
And we didn't win the title that year.
Look, players will be upset in the heat of the moment. And I always hate the people from Twitter, from the sidelines, that don't want to overanalyze, who never played the sport. I also didn't play the sport competitively, so I don't have a better perspective. But I'm not going to look at two players being passionate. I think they must hate each other. I think they care about what they're doing. They want to win. And sometimes you think of different ways to win, and sometimes that butts heads. I'm not going to read into it, Charlie. I'm not going to. I think he was the guy most likely to score for us, to be honest, against Chelsea, and he was taken off.
Jack said he's not going to read too much into it, but he's saying that Klopp's got Alzheimer's because he decided to sub Salah for a shape change.
Klopp like, is just, I don't look. I'm not Klopp out. I'll never be Klopp out. But
we can criticize substitutions a little bit later, but I did find that funny. He
has let the team get to this point. Jurgen Klopp has, to be honest. The money is there fundamentally, clearly, for Caicedo, and they were willing to spend it. The people, I think, who are making the decisions, truthfully, I feel like are held back by Klopp and this ideology we have that it has to be perfect. It has to make sense on every front. His wage, how much the transfer fee is, his fit in the squad, his age, injury history. And the truth is, very rarely you're going to find players who tick every single one of those boxes. To me, if Salah goes, I'm not going to stop supporting the club, but I'm just going to have to take a long step back and be like, I don't know what is happening. I'm just not going to talk for maybe another 2 months. I just will take a vow of silence.
Sabbatical. Okay, right. I'm going to play devil's advocate, and Brandon, I'm going to come to you, mate. Should we do it? His age, good money. Could we find a decent replacement?
No, not at this point. Not even close. Like, if this was June and they threw 300 million at us, think about it. Like, I would think about it. I really wouldn't want to, but I would think about it. If it was June, it's what? We have 2 weeks to find somebody to replace one of the best players in our absolute history who's still at the peak of his powers. No chance. Like, you can make that 600 million. I'm still not interested. No, walk away. Like, you're going to have to give me 10 digits to make me even think about giving away Mo Salah this summer. Like, you're going to have to be $1 billion behind that transfer offer. Like, no chance.
The guy that we should have signed would have been Bukayo Saka, and that would have been last summer. Would have been the moment to do that, to move Salah on, bring Saka in. That was probably the closest thing you could do. But unless you're offering Saka like the entire transfer fee we receive as his signing on bonus, he's not going to leave Arsenal for Liverpool right now. And so
they tried to sign him before he signed his professional contract when he first broke in, and they had negotiated with him, and he had to sign that contract with Arsenal. So after that point, I think soccer would never come to us, even if we did offer him absolute gangbusting wages. He's just Arsenal for life at this point.
Yeah, no, I mean he's the guy who I think could be the closest to Salah in that spot. You know, he would have been the guy. But again, why would he leave Arsenal right now? You know, they are going to be with the De Bruyne injury. This is their title to lose, to be honest. And go ahead, Brendan. Sorry.
I was just saying, and Arsenal fans absolutely worship him. They worship him. So there's no reason to leave.
No. And honestly, I guess London, look, I'm not from England. Charlie, I guess you can speak to just how much of a pull London, I guess, appears to be. Because every transfer target, it feels like, is they want to live in London. You know, they want to, like, that's why for Chelsea, it feels like Lavia wants to live in London, doesn't want to live in Liverpool or whatever. And
I think, I think the point on that is there's certainly the lifestyle in London compared to other parts of the world. Other parts of the UK is very, very different. I think the community is something that could speak for certain type of players from certain regions. You know, there's a big South American community within the London area. So yeah, there could be a pull there, but it's up to the club to try to sell that vision. It's not just on the pitch; it's off the pitch. What we could do for you in terms of who's already at the club, who speaks the same language, the type of senior leadership group. So all those things are taken into consideration, I'm sure. But this isn't the first time we've heard of it. You know, William, I remember back in the day, he was linked with us, and suddenly he says, "I want that London lifestyle."
Alexis Sanchez. We literally agreed a few with Barcelona, and he's like, I want to live in London, and so we had a situation where we ended up with Mario Balotelli.
Yeah.
We won.
It's just a hustle and bustle, isn't it? Yeah, we won that transfer, I think. But yeah,
Arsenal didn't win. They didn't win anything but FA Cups.
I want to bring up a comment actually, real quick, Charlie.
Go for it.
Truthfully, 600 million. I'm not sure if I'm selling still. Because it's the message you send. You know, 600 million is a bit extreme, to be honest. But it's the message you send that you could build a team with 600 million, but it's. I also saw a couple tweets when it was Caicedo and 110 million versus like Tyler Adams for 20. And people are like, is Caicedo 5.5 times the player that Tyler Adams is? No, he's not, because you can't be that many degrees better, but you can only play 11 players on the field at one time, and the players, it's so hard to improve at those top levels to just get those smallest of edges. 600 million, you might have spent all of that on finding a guy who gets you close to Salah. You know, maybe Alisson would have been a nice start. He's nowhere close, obviously, but he would have made sense and then gone from there. I just don't look. I have even more passionate thoughts about Alisson, Charlie. I just cannot imagine. Even at 600 million, I still have reservations because I'm like, I don't know what you're doing with that, truthfully. And I would hate to lose Salah.
So I mean, I think we spent a lot of time speaking about Salah. I don't think it's anything that's going to happen. Personally, I think it's very much a kick us when we're down type of subject, and maybe the next one is. I hope the next one is, because he's an absolute living legend. So again, very similar to the Salah talks around moving to Saudi. Alisson has been linked. I don't know, maybe it's already been dismissed. I've seen that as well. But,
David Lynch said that his family love Liverpool. They're not going anywhere, and I think that's very much the case. I don't think Alisson's ever going to go to Saudi Arabia, because he like Brazil had the Copa America. He's still the starting goalkeeper for Brazil. You know, if Alisson moved somewhere, he would move to like Madrid or Barcelona. Like, he would move somewhere to be in the Champions League. I don't think he wants to move to non-Champions League club.
I do worry, but Madrid, if for Courtois' injury, I was like, all right, crap. They're going to hog these midfielders. They're going to flex just how utterly ridiculous their midfield is, and then they're just going to take a massive dump on our heads and put in a bid for Alisson, because that's where I could see him go.
But they've already signed Kepa on loan, and I think that they're going to make that. They might make
they'll be fine
permanent next year.
No, I mean, Charlie, he also put out an Instagram post, I think today, pretty recently, just kind of saying, I'm excited for more Liverpool.
He loves the club, doesn't he?
Obviously, posts like that aren't like set in stone. It's not like it rules out everything completely. But
Yeah.
Who
Even
are you
his wife, so
Yeah.
his wife on the same post says that it's the best time of their life.
Yeah.
They love the city, they love the club. So those are the indications. I personally, I would absolutely be heartbroken if Alisson left, because first of all, he's just a fantastic player, fantastic guy. He has bled for the club. He kind of epitomizes what we should be doing as a club in terms of how we hold ourselves. You know, he speaks really well, speaks English. You know, some of the guys that come in from overseas haven't got a really good grasp of the language, which can hinder them. He's come in, you know, playing the guitar, singing the songs. He's been, you know, a quiet leader in some ways, but also very much at the front foot in terms of what he needs to do. Just on the weekend, you saw when McAllister was booked, who's that person that was there trying to calm him down? It was Alisson. And this isn't a dig against Virgil or Trent. They're very, very quiet individuals who show their abilities performing, whereas Alisson performs and is very vocal. I remember the Cody Gapco chest drop kick that he got last season, last game of the season itself. And who was there? It was him. He was remonstrating with the referee at that point. So I think I've spoken enough. But Brandon, what do you think about Alisson potentially leaving?
I shed like a couple tears on Bobby's last game. If Alisson left right now, I think
you'd be in the corner.
Yeah, I'd be in the
crying.
corner. Yeah, I would quit my job. I would stop paying bills. I would just give up on absolutely everything in life.
Yeah.
If Alisson left, I would be just beyond heartbroken.
Yeah,
and
same
I
here, man.
agree. I don't think there's any real credence. I mean, you don't go out on stage with the guitar the other night and play in front of the fans, and then next week say, "Yeah, I want to get out of here." That's not happening. I mean, never say never with the amount of money Saudi has, but no, it's just it's a non-starter for me as well, and it would just be losing Caicedo, losing Lavia, losing whoever, but losing Alisson would just be a completely different thing.
You can't replace him.
No.
There's no way you can replace him in the market, just because you could literally get a blank check, and the Saudi Arabians would say, take whatever's on here and just pay it for the replacement for Alisson. It could be blank, just like whatever it costs. It doesn't matter. Like, we could invest everything in winding the clock back on Petr Cech. You know, just get a time machine and just yank him back to his prime. I'm still, your argument maybe taking Alisson over him. That's how good he is. In this hypothetical fantasy world where you can bring anybody from the dead or from the past, it makes no sense. You're basically admitting competitively you don't want to compete anymore, and you want to just try and reassess, take a year off. And after last season, take a year off. Goes back to my point on Palhinha. I think we should sign players who can walk in at very confidently. You can say they will take us and take advantage of Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah, Trent, everybody being in their prime. I'm saying Trent's in his prime, but maybe he's still got room to grow, obviously. But
he's still got room to grow. Yeah,
you have this top class group of players. It makes no sense to give up any of them at all.
I think the thing is with these two is the pool of players that are available that would actually make a difference, that would substitute, you know, bring in the replacement in terms of ability and numbers. You know, you talk about Alisson, just even on the weekend, the save that he made against Jackson, I think it was Jackson. You know, we saw that numerous times last season. So you replace, can you replace that? Can you replace Salah's goals? But those are the things we need to try to consider. It's foreseeable that the players will be leaving because of the age or profile of other clubs, what we do for this season. But, you know, we'll kind of come to our final thoughts of the day. But Dan, I'll give you the stage. Any kind of thoughts about Alisson?
Yeah, there's no way that he's moving, and there's no way the club would ever let him move or Klopp in many ways. It'd very much be like a Coutinho situation where even if it was decided, he wouldn't move until January. But I don't think Alisson would push for a move. now. Obviously depends on if everything just absolutely implodes and Liverpool get relegated. Yeah, I mean that's a whole different situation, but I don't think that's happening. Absolute apocalypse scenario. I feel like times we've had a lot of anxiety with this year that the apocalypse scenario is very real. It's not like this is not a Liverpool team that is in the mud or that is absolutely broken. It's a team with a lot of very, very good players, a lot of very talented players, a good mix of youth and experienced players that just needs a little bit extra to get over the line. And by giving the line, I'm not talking about make top 4. I'm talking about making 92 points and winning a league. And that's very rare in football. And I think that our perspective over the past 4 or 5 years has been warped by both Man City and ourselves. That 99-point seasons, 100-point seasons is what you have to think of every year. When in fact, what we should be thinking of as fans and what Liverpool should be thinking, and I think this is what changed this year, is that we build our season. That we set a goal of we're going to try to get 90+ points, but the reality is we don't need to think the title is over at Bournemouth. If we go beat Bournemouth 2-1, that doesn't mean title race is back on. If we go to Newcastle, we draw 1-1, it's a bit scrappy and cagey. The title isn't lost. We can't be thinking that the title is lost in the second day of the season, or that we're out of the top 10 and we're going to be relegated at the second game of the season. We just need that bit of composure, that bit of hardness, that bit of bravery in the transfer room, on the pitch, and as a fan base. And I think we'll have a very, very good and a very, very fun season, and a season that we could potentially win. We could push for another quadruple. The fact that is possible, I think says a lot about the players we have, the type of coaching staff we have. That is a possibility that could happen.
Great. And on that positive note, Dan, you've kind of ended the show really, really well. Before I do, just a couple of things. Is there anything from Jack and Brandon that you want to share?
Brandon, anything you want to jump in?
I think
No. I think it's been a brilliant show. And we saved you from talking too much because you what we Brits call man flu. So yeah, hopefully you recover, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
Indeed. No, I mean Charlie just kind of hit on some last points. I have no idea what to expect these last few weeks. But there are worlds in which we sign nobody because nobody met our valuations and we didn't want to overspend. And I can equally see a world where we sign 3 players at good prices, at overpriced prices. The club isn't as smart as it once was. I think it's been a little bit of arrogance has gotten in. We still have intelligent people who are capable of seeing the situation quite well and finding good targets. I believe that fully. And the money is there. So I think that I would hate to leave this window feeling like we didn't give ourselves all the tools to go after it this season and next. I don't think we're anywhere close to a title charge, to be honest. I've seen people say it's like Palhinha and Inacio and we can make a title charge. I don't know what world you're living in, to be honest. I think top 4 is, if you get top 4 this year, you're happy. This league is a gauntlet. And whoever we sign in defensive mid to fit in the midfield structure, it's going to take a couple months to figure it out. We're going to have dumb draws. We're going to have dumb losses.
You just want us to be consistent, Jack.
Yeah.
As long as we can get consistent, who knows what this season will bring, right?
I
Whether
envision
it's a good cup run, good European run,
I want to see an 18-month spell that starts in January and goes till the 2025 end of 2025 season, where we tool ourselves, where we can develop and get into a real rhythm and groove, where we give one last push at a title and almost a fresh start in 2024, 25. I hate that after one match of this season, it feels like I'm writing this year off. I'm writing off a title this year because I don't think that I'm not going to go into the season thinking that we're going to win a title and then get pissed off when we don't, because I recognize that we've put ourselves in a bad spot. Different argument on if we should be in this spot, but I want to see us at least give it a try. If we sign Palhinha, it's always possible. It always could happen. But I guess my final thoughts are something needs to happen. I want the team as is. Nowhere close. It needs to be a few things.
I went for a tough thumping speech. Jack decided to throw cold water on me.
Yeah, look, man. I would love to be all hoo-ha and just like the future is bright. I'm gonna enjoy things regardless of what happens. To be honest, it's a sport. Like I'm not gonna sit here and bemoan. Once the window's done, I'll actually have a bit of peace of mind because I'm like, all right, this is the way it is. I'll look at this situation and I'll have fun when we're playing well, and I'll be mad when we're not playing well, but I'm not going to sit here and have any major, it's a game. the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I said before the stream started, the weekend just gone felt like a lifetime, really, really long time.
Oh yeah.
The next 2 weeks, it can either be a really joyous time with we get that positivity back, or something that needs kind of that it kind of solidifies maybe some thoughts in the back of fans' minds. But stick with us, everyone. I really, really want to thank you for joining us for the last hour and 10 minutes. It's been a fantastic effort from everyone. Brandon, I just want to call out, been an absolute hero, sticking with us, mate. You said you weren't too sure if you'd be able to hold out, mind you, the substitution, but you did it, man. It was
No,
really,
thank
really
you.
good of you.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us today, Jack. As always, an absolute pleasure. Let's not leave it so long till the next time. And Dan, I'm no doubt we'll see you another 4 times this week.
We'll see.
Great. So that's the end of today's stream. I want to say thank you again. We'll be back tomorrow with, I'm sure, some more topics, more debate, some really class discussion as well. Just look out for some more videos. I've got a video coming up soon. Just talking about the Bournemouth game. So lots coming out this week as we get to the next game. I'd like to thank you all. Have a good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are.